The national conversation about race and representation is reaching the advertising world. It was announced this week that Aunt Jemima brand will be retired. And as June is Pride Month, brands are always looking for ways to promote diversity. I spoke with Giselle Ugarte, the marketing director at MediaBridge Advertising, about what we're seeing now in the ad world. All right, let's start with the first question, Giselle. Let's talk about the Aunt Jemima decision. What does that say about the state of the advertising industry?
I think it says less about the advertising industry and more about us as a whole. People are taking to the streets and social media to command change. Previously, areas that people did not think would actually lead to long-lasting, meaningful change. And I think that this is just the very tip of the iceberg, because here's the thing. Businesses, brands, they go through rebrands all the time. And that's not that difficult of a thing to do. Yes, of course, it takes work. But I think what is really going to be telling is what happens beyond this. What happens behind the scenes that we don't see on the box? What's going to be happening in the boardrooms and at businesses? How are we reflecting internally to make sure that the change is not just external?
And we're going to get to that, I think, in a little bit as well. June is Pride Month. How are some companies trying to work pride in their marketing?
We see this year after year after year, but we're seeing more businesses participate. We're seeing the rainbows, we're seeing the word pride, and now actually you might notice that the rainbow is becoming even more inclusive, where you perhaps see baby blue and baby pink representing transgender visibility. You're seeing the black and the brown to represent people of color. But again, it is one thing for a business to say that they represent pride because they're posting a rainbow on their door or on their box. It's another thing entirely to actually be contributing to this community and making sure that what's happening inside of your business is reflective of that. And honestly, I think that there are a lot of businesses that they take a stand for something, or they claim that they are inclusive and diverse and they stand for equity. However, there are still people who work for those businesses who are uncomfortable speaking up or who don't get a voice at the table. And I think right now accountability is key, and we're seeing more and more people make sure to hold people to those higher standards.
Not that companies necessarily do this for the benefit of themselves, but what are the benefits of brands who include diversity in their advertising?
The biggest thing is that, while yes, of course, there are some people who think that brands take advantage of marginalized communities, and honestly, there are some people who they do it wrong. But what I love about it, especially being a person of color, is the fact that all of a sudden you start to see more and more people on the screens, in the magazines you're reading, that reflect the city around you, the community around you, or in some cases, let's be honest, Minnesota, Minneapolis, we believe that we are so progressive, but honestly diverse. We're not really. And for even a lot of smaller towns, sometimes this marketing and advertising, or even the casting that you see on your favorite television shows, it shows you a world that you might not be exposed to every day. And for that, to me, it shows a promising future, because we typically judge the things that we don't understand. But if we're starting to see it on a more regular basis, it's normalizing the diversity that exists. And that is true of color, sexual orientation, ability, and beyond.
Is there a potential backlash when companies are trying to include more diversity?
Of course. Especially when, you have a lot of companies who are claiming to stand for something, and yet internally it's not at all reflective of that, whether it is in their actions, in their leadership, in their words. And so with that, I appreciate the accountability that is set, the standard that all of us, even at MediaBridge, we are raising the bar, where we try to do a lot, certainly to open our doors to everyone, but we always believe that there is room for growth and room to do more. And, even recently we've seen Band-Aid. They've come out with all different colors of this bandage. And there are some people saying, you should have been doing that for years and years and years. Well, yes, 1,000% yes. However, would you rather that they do nothing or start now? And the second best time to start is right now. And so hopefully we'll start seeing more of that will then penetrate into who we are as people.
Are there any other particular trends, if that's what we should be calling it, that you're noticing through MediaBridge Advertising?
I appreciate that you said that, Jeff, because it's not a trend. Pride is not a trend. Black Lives Matter is not a trend. Equality is not a trend. And some people are looking at it that way, but this is something that we're looking for to make a long-lasting positive impact. And I do believe that what we are seeing more of is we're seeing people tap our employees and even our CEO saying, what can we do? what can we do to rebuild our community? What can we do to make sure that our leadership is more effective? What can we do to make sure that our doors actually feel welcome to everyone who walks through them? Because honestly, I can even say for myself that I have always worked for businesses that claim to be progressive and that claim to be welcome and claim to fight for equality. But it wasn't until this job, this CEO, where I truly felt like I could be the most honest, authentic version of myself. And that speaks to the head of the business, this female owned business, this LGBT owned business. And so with that, I think we're going to see a lot more businesses leading with heart, and we certainly hope to lead the way, but at the same time there's always going to be room for error, and we want to make sure that we're picking up all of those pieces.